Welcome to the Springs Are Everywhere podcast, a production of SMI, the Spring Manufacturers Institute. I'm your host, Gary McCoy, Executive Director of SMI. Our podcast highlights important issues facing manufacturers and gives you a brief glimpse of products that contain springs. Please take a moment to subscribe, rate us, and like us on YouTube and on your favorite podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. In this edition, we focus on the topic of safety with Dr. Laura Rhodes, a longtime columnist for Springs Magazine and SMI's regulatory compliance consultant. Laura talks about her own career in safety sciences and takes a glimpse at the most common safety risks for manufacturers, along with the assessment of what a truly safe and compliant operation looks like. The Springs Are Everywhere podcast is brought to you in part by our platinum sponsor, Gibbs Interwire. Today we're diving into a topic that sits at the heart of every successful manufacturing operation: safety and compliance. It's not just about avoiding fines, it's about protecting people, building trust, and creating workplaces where everyone can thrive. It's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Laura Rhodes to the Springs Are Everywhere podcast. Laura is a board-certified safety professional in comprehensive practice and is an associate professor in the Safety Sciences and Environmental Engineering Department at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. She's served as SMI's regulatory and compliance consultant since 2014. Laura, I can't believe I've known you for more than a decade, and I want to thank you on behalf of SMI for your help in keeping our members and their employees safe. Welcome to the program.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Well, I'm excited about our conversation, so let's dive in. Laura, first of all, tell me a little bit about your background and why you decided to go into the field of safety science and what you enjoy most about it.
Well, that's a great question, and one that I make sure that my students are able to answer too once they go into a career questionnaire kind of situation. So I started out in late high school, early college. I worked for one of the premier ambulance companies in Pennsylvania. They were kind of cutting edge on a lot of things. They came up with the first immediate response person idea. Jerry Esposito came up with the idea of the modern ambulance, what we kind of experience today. He had designed that and implemented that. And oddly enough, the people that worked there were either medical school students or they were in safety sciences. And I was a deaf education major. And so through that and a couple of the calls that I went on, one was at a mine where I saw someone that was hit by a continuous miner. I just decided that I wanted to be on the prevention side of accidents. So that's how it all started back in the 80s, I guess.
And now you get to be called professor, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So let's start with the big picture. When you walk into manufacturing environments today, what are the most common safety risks you're seeing?
That's another great question. And there are some really common things that we do see, safety professionals see in the manufacturing environment. Certainly caught in equipment, so machine guarding is at the top of my list, something that I'm looking for. Forklift accidents, being struck by a forklift. Workplace violence has become a really terrible situation for workers, workplaces. And then I think from a money standpoint, the musculoskeletal disorders, so back injuries, hand, wrist, shoulder, very, very costly to American business. Like it's over like $58 billion that it costs American private industry just musculoskeletal. So those are the things that I try to really key in on.
So, Laura, when you think about a truly safe and compliant operation right now, what does that look like? And can you kind of paint a picture for us?
Well, I think I kind of see myself as a business consultant, not just as a safety person, because safety is really part of the whole business process. And when it's integrated into the safety process, you know that they quote unquote get it. So when I'm talking to a CEO or upper management at a facility and they know what their experience modification is on their workers' comp, they know whether or not they're over a 1. If they're over a 1, things are kind of out of control. So from a safe and compliant standpoint, trying to get the heartbeat of upper management is really key for me.
So, are there any early warning signs that a facility might be drifting out of compliance?
Well, it's a lagging indicator on the workers' comp claims, that so we're kind of too late when that happens and people have gotten hurt. But if you're having other kinds of errors, if you have product errors, you have customer complaints, you have housekeeping problems, you've got tardiness. I mean, there are other business indicators that we can use that, if they're not taking care of those things, they're probably not taking care of the safety compliance issues. So again, I really see it as a business consulting, not just safety consulting.
Are there any particular regulations or standards that leaders tend to misunderstand or maybe just overlook?
Well, there are some that I am seeing that are happening a lot, and things that the one that is misunderstood, I would say most often, is that we're buying a piece of equipment overseas and we have optional guards when we buy that, right? From an employer standpoint. So you look at these great pieces of equipment, but we have optional guarding. And what they don't understand is when they put that into their facility, it needs to meet the machine guarding and electrical requirements, especially in some states, very strict electrical compliance. So buying used equipment, buying new equipment from overseas, they think it's optional, but it's really not optional.
Laura, that's it's interesting, how we're a worldwide industry, even though for the most part, we're North American, but you have to think about how does this apply to what we do here in the U.S. So we're going to take a short break, and I'll be right back with more with Laura Rhodes in just a moment.
Gibbs Interwire, North America's largest spring wire distributor, now offers precision draw, high-performance alloy wire through a partnership with Alloy Specialty Metals. With over 125 alloys, our goal is to deliver exactly what you need, precisely when and where you need it. We're committed to bringing you simpler sourcing with the highest quality results tailored to your requirements. As a longtime supporter of SMI's mission to inform the spring industry, Gibbs Interwire is proud to be the platinum sponsor of the Springs Are Everywhere podcast. For your quote today, call Gibbs Interwire at 800-800-4422 or visit us at gibbswire.com.
I'm back with Laura Rhodes, and I want to focus on the nitty-gritty day-to-day items. What daily or weekly practices actually move the needle on reducing injuries?
Well, not to harp on this idea of business consulting, but if the day-to-day activities that are leadership activities should be connected directly to safety. So maybe a pre-shift meeting with your employees. You're talking about what the day's events are going to be. We can talk about the hazards that are associated with those tasks. Maybe I just wrote about non-routine tasks in Springs Magazine. I surmise that there are a lot of events that happen on non-routine tasks that we haven't really looked at the risks. So having those pre-shift meetings, making sure that equipment's inspected prior to use. If you don't have 3 shifts, that first shift that someone's definitely doing the forklift inspection, not because OSHA requires it, but because we got to make sure that all the safety features are in place. So to look at it kind of beyond compliance, but why we're doing those things. So I think that leadership, the supervisor leadership, that coming from top management, where we're having meetings about before the meeting starts, that the first item on the agenda are things that are going well in safety, maybe a pat on the back about safety, but also maybe some concerns, some near misses, things that we got away with, but we got to make sure that we don't hit those things again, and then have a loss. So I think the daily leadership, integrating safety into those daily leadership activities.
And Laura, you work a lot on the idea of getting a good safety committee within a company. What would that look like for most manufacturing companies?
Well, one of the things that we probably should have started the conversation with is that I'm not an attorney, and a lot of this is governed by your state. So there are rules that you should probably look at. But you can get in trouble on how you set up your safety committee. For example, you don't elect a safety committee. If you have a union contract and it says what the way the committee is supposed to be, then you go by that contract. If you don't have a contract, you have to be cautious about how you set that up. Our state, the state of Pennsylvania, has really great guidance from labor and industry. They've got some sample charters. So a charter tells you how long a term will be, what kind of activities they'll do, how often they should have training. So I would say to have a policy procedure and then work from that policy or procedure and rotate people in and out and make it a good thing. Don't make it that, oh, you're on the safety committee. You got to make it a really positive thing.
Yeah, I think that's one of those, don't let it go to your head, right? So, yeah. and let's say outside of the, anybody. Yeah, and I think I'm just curious too. I think a lot of times the frontline employees probably see things that management may not see, and how can you help them get that information to management, spotting and reporting risk?
Yeah, and I think trying to avoid kind of the paperwork thing is probably a way. I know people are kind of bogged down. I know supervisors are bogged down in paperwork, but I think this is where some of the modern kind of the smart safety stuff that we're going to talk about in Puerto Rico comes into play, where there are ways to take photographs with an iPad or your phone, and you can take a picture of that hazard, and it can be routed to the person that needs to react to it. Perhaps it's maintenance, perhaps it's another supervisor, maybe it's the president, maybe it's HR. It depends how your organization's set up. But I think there are some tech ways that we can start to solve some of those things without getting bogged down in the paperwork. But more importantly, that a hazard's addressed immediately instead of waiting a month till the safety committee to talk about it, which I think is really dangerous to do that.
Well, I like the fact that you mentioned Puerto Rico. That was my next question. You're going to be joining us for SMI's annual meeting. I know a lot of people have never been to Puerto Rico, so that'll be a bonus. But we've got a lot of great educational content that people want to be there for. And you have an interesting topic that you're going to tackle: smart safety, how technology and innovation are redefining worker protection in manufacturing. You don't want to say that fast 3 times, by the way.
No.
So can you give us a short preview of what you'll be talking about?
Yeah, you can tell it was an academic that came up with that, right? So, and I just want to give a little plug for SMI. That one of the reasons that I was so intrigued to come with SMI is that it is an institute, and I think some of the greatest strengths come from some of the educational opportunities that are available from the institute portion of this group. And so I'm always excited to be a part of that, and certainly to be asked to be a part of this particular annual meeting. I'm very excited. But what I'm going to talk about is really kind of an overview of what I'm seeing from the academic side, from technology, and some of the innovations that are happening at the shop floor from an academic side. So the studies that have been done, so we get some good data on what is happening, what's really working. But I also want to talk about return on investment. Some things, we have some pretty small companies that, they're not going to, it's maybe not going to be a big return on investment to go full out into having visual hazard identification, machine learning kind of opportunities in their facility. But there might be some at a smaller scale that they might be able to implement. We're going to talk about exoskeletons, which are very helpful in addressing some of this musculoskeletal disorders. And we'll look at the return on investment, see what's happening in academia, as well as what's working in the field at some major corporations about eliminating back injuries, eliminating these very costly shoulder, hand, wrist type of injuries using exoskeletons, and also wearable technology. Monitoring employees. We have some privacy issues that go with that. But we also have employees who, we all think that we have athletes that are working for us. And it's really not the case. Half of workers, I think it's half of workers, according to the CDC, and this was in 2020, are all taking at least one prescription medication. A third are taking 3 prescription medications. So wearable technology, there are privacy issues, but identifying fatigue and medical monitoring so that we have a well workplace. I think these are all things that we can talk about and that can make us more productive. So if we see safety as a part of being a more productive, a more profitable organization, and seeing where that fits in from a smart safety standpoint.
Laura, I think one of the benefits of coming is they can talk to you directly. I got questions, you got answers, right? And tell me a little bit about what you do for SMI members, because I think that would really help people understand. You've been with us, coming up on 12 years, which is amazing. But what do you do when you're not teaching students?
Yeah. So most of my work on site happens in the summers. But I do, through the academic year, I still also do phone calls, emails, those kind of things, questions. OSHA shows up at your door. You can call me and I can walk you through that process. If you've already had OSHA there and you're up against some serious citations, I have some really great resources for that. And we can talk you through some of that. That's all free. And so that phone call, email, I think it's one of the best kept secrets of being an SMI member. EHS consulting is very expensive. And we have some really small companies who probably are not going to pay thousands and thousands of dollars to have a consultant that serves their company. But if they have a particular question, it's easy to just pick up the phone and call me or send me an email. And I get back to you when I have an opportunity to do that. I write in the SMI Springs magazine, and I try to do cutting edge topics, things that I've seen, things that are coming through OSHA and other compliance driven topics. I do a lot of crossover to human resources. I'm a SHRM certified senior HR professional, as well as being a certified safety professional. So there is that crossover on HR. So I try to touch a lot on HR. But then I do the webinars, and would certainly like more people to come to the webinars. And I also sit on the regulatory committee, which is part of the executive board. So we have company owners that are a part of that committee and try to, just come up with some plans for where SMI wants to be as far as compliance and our influence on those things that are going to hit those employers.
Yeah, I think, Laura,
so that's what I do for SMI.
Really, yeah, and I like to tell people, you're a small company, but we got people that are almost like part of your staff. They're available, they're ready to help, and you don't have a person sitting in your staff directory that does that, but we do, and that's why it's great to be a member. Laura, let's talk just maybe some long-term stuff, and I just want to ask you, what are the emerging risks that manufacturing companies should be prepared for in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I do think that lockout is going to change. Hopefully, OSHA is going to be addressing some of the changes on the standards. We've got, it's been a while since we've had some updates on ANSI and as well as OSHA, so that compliance understands that some equipment is computer driven, but at the same time, we have new equipment that's coming, things that we haven't even dreamt of yet. So I think from the lockout standpoint, we can try to be as modern as possible, but we don't know what those new things are. So I think we're going to have to really keep the pulse of employees being caught in equipment, because the things we're talking about are 100% preventable. The falls, musculoskeletal, lockout, tagout, those are 100% preventable. So I think changes in that and, implementation of robots. We've got, some of those things as far as risks. I think the workforce, the availability of workforce, multilingual workforce, which I've addressed in a Springs magazine about overcoming language barriers in your workplace. Certainly workplace violence. There are things that we're going to have. Psychological safety is kind of the hot term right now, and making sure that employees can tell you about concerns that they have and be comfortable telling you about those concerns. So I would say some of those. I think the insurance market is going to change significantly over those 5 to 10 years. I think those are things to keep the pulse of as well.
Well, Laura, a lot of good stuff today. And if people haven't read your stuff, you even talk about lacrosse in one of your columns recently.
I do.
So there you go.
Yeah.
I talk about ants. You talk about lacrosse. So there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Our little teaser to read the magazine. But Laura, looking forward to having you with us in Puerto Rico. And, I know you're quite active on LinkedIn.
I am.
Is that one of the best ways to connect with you?
Sure. I think that is a great way to connect with me. I think it's the professional version of really networking. I'm not a Facebook person, but to keep it really professional on that LinkedIn. I post a lot of EHS jobs, digital jobs too, so data scientist jobs. Try to share any of the academics, other universities too, because there are a lot of opportunities wherever you're located, wherever your organization is located. There is likely a safety program, and connecting with an intern, say a junior or senior intern, and having them come into your facility to help you is kind of a low cost way and a terrific way to give back. And you get some great advice from a junior or senior helping you out in your safety program. So you do see a lot of those items on my LinkedIn.
Well, fantastic. Laura, thanks again for joining us today, and we'll, like I said, look forward to seeing you soon at our annual meeting.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to it, and hope we get to do this again sometime. Thanks, Gary.
In addition to Gibbs Interwire, the Springs Are Everywhere podcast has been made possible by the generous support of our silver sponsor, Automated Industrial Motion. AIM is a world-class leader in the design, manufacture, and service of spring coiling machines and wire forming equipment. You can learn more at aimcoil.com.
Thanks for joining us for the Springs Are Everywhere podcast. I want to thank Laura Rhodes for joining the program today. You can learn more about SMI at smihq.org, and be sure to subscribe, rate us, and like us on YouTube and on your favorite podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can also browse our archives for past programs with content on many different topics. This program would not be made possible without the generous support of our platinum sponsor, Gibbs Interwire, and our silver sponsor, Automated Industrial Motion.
Do you enjoy wearing or collecting mechanical watches? Ever wondered what makes them tick? A mainspring and balance spring work together to ensure every second counts. The mainspring stores and releases energy by winding up a tightly coiled steel spring, which gradually unwinds to power the watch's movement. The balance spring keeps timing accurate with its steady oscillations by contracting and expanding to regulate precise timekeeping. Just another reminder that springs are everywhere and closer than you think, even on your wrist.